HMS Alban was the second of 12 Adonis-class schooners built for the Royal Navy during the Napoleonic Wars. Ordered in 1804, she was laid down in Bermuda and launched in 1806. She was made of cedar and was over 68 feet long, weighing in at over 110 tons. She was commissioned into the Navy under the command of Lieutenant James Stone and was armed with 10 British 18-pounder carronades. Her first notable engagement was in July 1807 when Alban joined the blockading force at Petit Breton, along with the brigs Conflict, Growler, Calpos and the sloop Hazard. On the morning of the 27th of July, the force encountered 16 enemy vessels, mostly merchant vessels, at the entrance of the Betwee. Due to the weather being calm, the British were forced to chase them using the ship's boats. They were successful in capturing 9 vessels, of which 2 were armed. A 10th vessel was scuttled by her crew to prevent capture, with the remaining 6 forced onto the shores by the pursuing British, where it is believed they were all wrecked by heavy swell. In November of 1807, command of HMS Alban was taken over by Lieutenant Henry Weir. Under his command, Alban captured the American ship Active on the 17th of January 1808, before sailing to Rio de Janeiro on the 8th of April. In 1809, HMS Alban was transferred to the Baltic to take part in the gunboat war against the Danish, where on the 5th of November she captured a Prussian sloop. Then on the 23rd of May 1810, Alban was with the sloop HMS Raleigh and the cutter Princess of Wales when they encountered 7 Danish gunboats off the Skaw. The resulting battle saw 1 gunboat blown up, with the remaining 6 forced to flee with heavy damage. On the 26th of June, she captured the Danish galley Catherine Augusta. Then, on the 28th of June, Henry Weir was promoted to commander and made the captain of HMS Calypso. But before taking up his new command, he captured the Danish galley Caroline on the 12th of July while still commanding Alban. He was replaced by Lieutenant Samuel Thomas. His command was brief, for on September the 12th, 1810, Alban was pounced on by 6 Danish gunboats off Leso Island. Alban attempted to flee, but the wind had died and the gunboats were able to catch her. About 3 hours into the engagement, Lieutenant Thomas was killed by a round shot, and command fell on Midshipman Alexander Hutchinson. The fight lasted for another hour until her rigging was blown away, leaving Alban surrounded and forced to surrender, with 2 men dead and 3 injured. Alban was captured, repaired and rearmed, being pressed into Danish service in 1811 under the same name, under the command of Lieutenant Fourier Emile Rosennen, whose command of Alban was also brief, for on the 11th of May 1811, Alban ran into the brig HMS Rifleman near the Shetland Islands, where she was captured after a 12-hour chase. She was then taken to Sheerness on the Isle of Sheppey, where she was refitted between July and November of 1811, being recommissioned back into the Royal Navy under the command of Lieutenant William Sturgis Key. He was still in command of HMS Alban when it was stationed off the Dutch coast in 1812. On the 17th of December 1812, HMS Alban was cruising near the coast of Holland in poor weather when she struck a sandbank. In order to free her, the crew began dumping various items overboard, including the guns. This was not enough, so the crew cut down the main mast and threw it overboard. This proved to work, and the ship was freed. A jury-rigged sail was erected, and she used this to limp back to the English coast, dropping anchor about half a mile from the town of Aldborough, where she waited out the night. On board, there were 3 women, 2 children, and at least 44 men. By the morning of the 18th, the weather was still poor, with strong gales and a large swell breaking over her. At about 8 a.m, the anchor was cut with the intention to allow Alban to run onto the shore where her crew could escape and possibly salvage the ship later. But at about 100 yards from shore, she hit a shoal and stuck fast, and was unable to free herself. Despite its close proximity to shore, the surf was too high for any boats to be launched, either from Alban herself or from the town of Aldborough, whose people had turned out onto the beach in droves. At about 9 a.m, the tide was low enough for the townspeople to get out to the ship, but for most it was already too late. According to sources, there were either 49 or 61 souls on board when she grounded at 8 a.m. By 9 a.m, there was only 3 still alive. A young sailor by the name of Newton, an unnamed woman who was working for Lieutenant Key, and the ship's surgeon, Mr. Thompson. When rescue arrived, Thompson inexplainably jumped into the water from where he would met his end. The remaining 2 would be successfully rescued. It should be noted Alban had not broken up by this point, and it is believed that the large loss of life is due to the fact that most of the crew were intoxicated at this point, which would account for those found drowned inside of Alban after the tragedy. As for the Alban herself, her eventual fate is unclear. I am unable to say whether she was broken up or simply abandoned to the elements, but she was almost certainly not recovered. Today, on the shingle beaches of Aldborough, there is no trace of the disaster that happened over 200 years ago.